comes a moment in every seeker's journey when the veil of ordinary perception begins to thin. A chance encounter, a repeated number, a sudden breeze during a pivotal thought. What once seemed like coincidence begins to feel like choreography. In these fleeting alignments, we catch a glimpse of something deeper, a sacred architecture underpinning reality. This is the realm of synchronicity, where life whispers through patterns, timing, and intuitive knowing. What follows is not a doctrine, but a map, a 5-part unfolding that will guide you back to the ancient rhythm of meaning woven through every moment of your life. You've spent much of your life in pursuit, chasing dreams, love, approval, success, as if they always danced one step beyond reach. We're taught to sprint harder toward what we desire, but few are taught to pause and question whether the very act of chasing might be why these things evade us. What if the energy of grasping, the frequency of need, creates an invisible repulsion? What if what you long for is not far away, but simply not aligned? There exists a subtle, ancient law, often called the backwards law, a paradox found in Zen teachings, in Taoist flow, and even in modern psychology. It suggests that the more you strive desperately for something, the more you signal to the universe that you are lacking it, and the universe, always reflecting the vibration you emit, responds in kind. Your want, when soaked in fear or scarcity, becomes a repelling force. The world is not deaf to your desire. It is listening for coherence. Think of a still pond. When you splash wildly, the water distorts and no reflection appears. But in stillness, the image returns. The same is true with manifestation. The frantic energy behind your want obscures clarity, distorts reception, and delays the arrival. To align is to still the waters. Those who attract with grace don't necessarily desire less. They simply don't transmit desperation. Their internal posture is one of already having, not of constant seeking. They emit the vibration of arrival rather than longing. This isn't about faking confidence or pretending to have what you don't. It's about embodying the energy of what you seek. That is alignment. When your thoughts, feelings, and presence resonate as if your desire is already realized, synchronicity begins to swirl around you. The universe, like a magnet tuned to energetic tone, responds not to your words, but to your being. This is why those miraculous moments often happen when you finally let go. You stop trying to bend life to your timeline, and suddenly it bends toward you. Letting go doesn't mean giving up. It means surrendering control so your frequency can harmonize with what's meant for you. Here lies the doorway into synchronicity. It does not open through effort. It opens through resonance. When you step into this awareness, life shifts from chaos to choreography. Every closed door becomes an invitation to alignment. Every delay becomes a recalibration. You no longer feel punished by the patterns. You begin to read them. You stop screaming into the void and start listening to its song. What follows in the next parts is not just theory. It is the anatomy of synchronicity, the unseen architecture, the internal alignments, and the sacred conversation between your soul and the fabric of reality. Most people wake each day believing reality is a rigid system of chance and effort, unaware that they are immersed in a vast, living field of potential. This quantum field, an invisible ocean of possibilities, responds not to logic or luck, but to frequency. And synchronicity is the whispering ripple that signals when you've tuned your inner dial just right. It is not a trick of perception nor wishful thinking. It is an ancient language, older than words, encoded into the very fabric of creation. creation. Synchronicities, those precise moments when outer events mirror inner states, are not anomalies. They are confirmations that your internal frequency has found resonance with the larger pattern. Carl Jung named this phenomenon not as fantasy, but as meaningful coincidence, events that, while having no causal relationship, align with profound psychological or spiritual meaning. To Jung and mystics alike, synchronicity was a sign of alignment with the self, the deeper, eternal part of you that stands beyond ego and identity. How does this mechanism operate? Begin with your focus. Within your brain lies the reticular activating system, RAS, a bundle of nerves that filters your sensory input. It decides what is relevant based on your beliefs and attention. Ever decide to buy a specific car and suddenly you see it everywhere? That's the RAS in action. Now apply that to the metaphysical. Once you start tuning your awareness to meaning, synchronicities become more visible. But this is only the surface. The RAS explains what the eye sees, but quantum law explains what the field does. Just as particles in the famous double-slit experiment behave differently when observed, your consciousness shapes outcomes simply through attention. The universe does not just reflect, it responds. When your inner world, your emotions, thoughts, and subconscious beliefs enter coherence, the field begins to collapse into form, and it chooses the path of least resistance through symbols, mirrors, and signs that reflect your own inner evolution. Imagine walking through a forest that changes shape as you step. When you think with fear, the path narrows and darkens. When you feel peace, it widens and glows. Synchronicity is the forest speaking back. It is the rustle of the leaves in response to your thought, the sudden bird call affirming your intention, the stranger who echoes the very words you whispered to yourself. These are not moments to dismiss. They are invitations. The more you honor synchronicity, the more frequently it appears. Attention is the gateway. The universe speaks most clearly when it knows you are listening. That's why synchronicities increase during times of heightened awareness. When you're falling in love, experiencing loss, beginning transformation. In those thresholds, your perception widens and the field responds. But beware, not all synchronicities are confirmation. Some are correction. Patterns repeat not just to affirm, but to awaken. If you find yourself in cycles, meeting the same kind of person, facing the same challenge, it may not be a sign that you're in flow, but that you're being shown an unresolved frequency, a signal of what still lives in your subconscious, begging for transformation. The trick is in the listening, not just to signs, but to yourself. What emotion stirs before a synchronicity strikes? What thought preceded that repeating number or familiar face? The moment you turn inward as the mirror, synchronicity stops being mystery and starts becoming message. And now, you're not just walking through life, you're in conversation with it. There are seasons when life unravels, not gently, but like a storm pulling everything apart. The job vanishes, the relationship fractures, the dream shatters in your hands. And just when you think you've understood the rules of manifestation and alignment, everything dissolves. Synchronicity doesn't vanish in these moments. It deepens, because behind what appears as loss is not punishment, but precision. This is the paradox of divine design. The deeper the transformation, the more chaotic its arrival. When the universe prepares you for your next becoming, it doesn't add, it subtracts. It clears out the inessential, the outdated, the unaligned. The process isn't comfortable. It often feels like betrayal, but in truth, it is refinement. Like a sculptor realigns with higher truth. The pain you endure in these moments isn't evidence of misalignment. It's the very sign that alignment is underway. Think of the seed. It must be buried, broken, and dissolved before it can sprout. So too with us. Before we rise into a new frequency, the shell of our previous self must crack, and synchronicity, in these darker moments, speaks through absence rather than presence. The silence you feel is not emptiness. It is the space being made. The doors that close are not curses. They are corridors being redirected. Most people miss the synchronicity in suffering because they look for comfort rather than clarity. But for those who dare to listen deeper, the chaos becomes sacred choreography. What breaks you is not meant to destroy you, but to reveal you. Ancient initiates knew this well. Every transformation began with symbolic death, a descent into the underworld, a confrontation with shadow. The Egyptian Osiris was dismembered before rebirth. The alchemist's base material had to dissolve before turning to gold. The pattern is universal. Deconstruction precedes creation. Synchronicities during such times may not be the joyous kind. They arrive as patterns of endings, relationships vanishing in threes, dreams evaporating overnight, solitude replacing connection. But every repeated loss is a sacred echo. What no longer serves your destiny must go. It is only in hindsight we see that what felt like chaos was choreography, that every fracture was a fault line leading to a deeper foundation. Synchronicity is not only about timing, it is about resonance. The universe mirrors your internal state with exquisite precision, and what you see out there is simply the echo of what you carry in here. This is the hidden architecture behind every pattern in your life. Repeating situations, familiar emotional landscapes, cycles of lack or abundance. All of these are not random repetitions, but reflections. To understand synchronicity fully, you must understand energy, not as metaphor, but as mechanism. Every thought you think, every emotion you feel, broadcasts a frequency. It's not mystical poetry, it's bioelectric reality. Your body generates electromagnetic fields, your brain emits measurable waves, and your heart's coherence influences your surroundings more powerfully than logic can explain. You are not just a receiver of life, you are a transmitter, and what you transmit, you attract. This is why your life seems to repeat until you change your vibration. The universe is not punishing you. It is responding to you, not to your surface-level wishes, but to your dominant emotional tone. You might say, I want peace. But if your inner world is wired with anxiety and resentment, peace will not arrive. The signal is incoherent. Ancient mystics knew this law long before science gave it terms. They built temples aligned with celestial geometry, uttered words of power in specific tones, and observed fasts, not as superstition, but as energetic refinement. They knew the external world is plastic, and consciousness is the sculptor. Here's the secret. You don't attract what you want. You attract what you are, and what you are is the composite vibration of your thoughts, emotions, beliefs, and intentions. To shift your synchronicity, you must shift your frequency. This doesn't require force, it requires awareness. Start small. Notice the emotional texture of your morning thoughts. Observe how your internal dialogue feels in your body. Pay attention to what expands you and what contracts you. These subtle observations are not trivial. They are sacred diagnostics. Your field is constantly being tuned, and awareness is the hand on the dial. As you align with gratitude, clarity, and stillness, the patterns around you change. People respond differently. social programming, all create energetic. To truly live in synchronicity is not to wait for signs. It is to become the sign. The seeker becomes the sage, not by accumulating insight, but by embodying alignment so fully that life itself cannot help but reflect it. This final layer of synchronicity is not passive observation. It is conscious participation. By now, you've seen the clues. The inner world shapes the outer. Thought becomes form. Emotion sculpts experience. And the universe, mysterious yet exact, responds not to your wishes, but to your vibrational signature. So the question becomes, how do you maintain this awareness in a world of noise? The answer is presence, not a passing mindfulness, but a rooted awareness of your frequency at all times. This is the true spiritual discipline, not rituals for performance, but posture of perception. You become a living tuning fork, a transmitter of coherence, a vessel of embodied intention. Presence stabilizes the signal. This is where the practices of stillness, fasting, prayer, or creative ritual enter, not to please an external power, but to clear internal static. These practices refine your energy, making your transmission pure, and in that purity, synchronicity no longer feels like magic. It becomes mechanism. You'll notice conversations start arriving before you even seek them. Opportunities feel sculpted to your unique path. You feel drawn, not pushed, into the right directions. This isn't just flow, it's design. Life stops happening to you and begins happening from you. But beware, living as synchronicity embodied is not about perfection. It's about attunement. There will still be moments of doubt, fear, and dissonance. The difference is, now you'll recognize the frequency and adjust. You won't react, you'll realign. The delays won't discourage you, they'll recalibrate you. Even the detours will feel divine. The world has not changed, you have. And in that shift, what once felt random now feels orchestrated. What once seemed like chance now feels like choreography. This is the essence of synchronicity. Life is not a series of accidents. It is a living dialogue between your soul and the cosmos. You are not a victim of fate. You are not a passive passenger. You are a sovereign frequency, pulsing within the quantum field, drawing meaning into form. So watch the signs, yes, but more importantly, become one. Live as alignment. Walk as coherence. Let your very being be the message,